Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk to you about something fundamental to the human experience: happiness. More specifically, how to be happy every day. Now, when we talk about happiness, it's important to define our terms. I'm not referring to the fleeting dopamine hit you get from scrolling on your phone or eating a chocolate bar. I'm talking about a sustainable, biologically supported state of well-being, something you can cultivate daily through specific, actionable tools rooted in neuroscience. When we think about happiness, we often imagine it as something emotional, abstract, or even mysterious. But science tells us that happiness, at least the kind we can cultivate daily, is deeply linked to biology. One of the simplest and most powerful ways to influence that biology is by getting morning sunlight. It may sound basic, but this single behavior plays a foundational role in setting your mental and emotional tone for the entire day. And it's backed by decades of neuroscience. Your body runs on a 24-hour clock known as the circadian rhythm. This internal clock influences nearly every system in your body, from hormone release to metabolism to mood. Crucially, the circadian rhythm isn't just about sleep. It plays a major role in how alert, focused, and even optimistic you feel throughout the day. And what sets this clock? Primarily light. Specifically, sunlight entering your eyes not through windows or sunglasses, but directly from the outside environment. Inside your eyes are special light sensing cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, IPRGCS. These cells aren't involved in forming visual images. Instead, they detect the brightness of the environment. When light hits them, particularly the short wavelength blue light present in natural sunlight, they send a signal directly to a part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, located in the hypothalamus. The SCN is your master circadian clock. It receives that light input and says, it's daytime, and begins orchestrating a cascade of physiological events. Here's where it gets interesting. That light-driven signal from the SCN stimulates the release of cortisol early in the day. Now, we often think of cortisol as a stress hormone, but in the morning, a spike in cortisol is exactly what you want. It increases alertness, improves your ability to focus, and sets in motion your daily rhythm of energy, mood, and motivation. Importantly, early light exposure also helps regulate serotonin, a neurotransmitter critical to feelings of well-being, calm, and mood stability. What happens if you don't get morning sunlight? Your circadian system becomes misaligned. Cortisol may rise at the wrong times, your sleep-wake cycle gets disrupted, and serotonin production may suffer. This can lead to feeling groggy in the morning, foggy during the day, and wired but tired at night. Over time, this misalignment can contribute to depression, anxiety, poor sleep, and chronic fatigue. But here's the good news. Getting outside for just 5 to 10 minutes in the morning, ideally within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, is often enough to anchor your biological rhythms. On cloudy days, you might need 15-20 minutes, but the light intensity outdoors is still dramatically higher than any indoor lighting. You don't need to stare at the sun just being outside. Letting the ambient light reach your eyes is enough to trigger the needed neural and hormonal responses. What's remarkable is how predictably effective this habit is. People who consistently get morning sunlight report better mood, more stable energy levels, and improved sleep quality at night. This is because morning light not only boosts serotonin early in the day, but also sets the timer for melatonin, the hormone that helps you fall asleep, to be released roughly 14-16 hours later. This isn't about being a morning person. It's about syncing your biology with the natural environment in a way that makes your brain and body function better. Happiness, in this case, becomes a byproduct of alignment, a natural result of living in sync with your biology. So if you're looking for one habit to increase your happiness, energy, and sleep quality, this is it. Get outside early, get sunlight in your eyes, and let your brain know it's time to wake up and engage with the day. It's a small shift, but it can change everything. When we think about happiness, we often imagine it as something that simply happens to us, a feeling that arises when things go well or when we receive something we want. But neuroscience tells us a different story. Happiness is not just a passive state. It's something we can actively create through our behaviors. One of the most powerful systems in the brain related to happiness is the dopamine system, a set of pathways that govern motivation, reward, and effort. Understanding how to engage this system correctly can be the difference between chasing short-term pleasure and building lasting, day-to-day happiness. Dopamine is often misunderstood. It's not about pleasure itself. Rather, dopamine is about the anticipation of reward. It's what drives us to take action, to pursue goals, and to feel energized by the process of progress. When dopamine is released in appropriate amounts, we feel a sense of purpose, focus, and momentum. But when it's dysregulated, either through overstimulation or lack of engagement, we can feel flat, unmotivated, or even depressed. One of the best ways to engage the dopamine system in a healthy and sustainable way is by setting small, clear goals, each day goals that are challenging enough to require effort, but achievable enough that you can experience success regularly. This daily practice of effort and accomplishment triggers dopamine release, not just when the goal is completed, but throughout the process of working toward it. And that's key. Dopamine is more about the pursuit than the prize. Let's look at an example. Suppose your goal is to write a page in your journal each morning. When you sit down and begin, your brain registers that you've initiated a purposeful action. As you make progress sentence by sentence, your dopamine levels rise incrementally. And when you finish, there's a small but meaningful dopamine peak. That rise in dopamine tells your brain this behavior is worth repeating. Over time, this reinforces a positive feedback loop. Goal, effort, progress, dopamine, motivation, repeat. Importantly, the size of the goal is less critical than the clarity of the task and the consistency with which you pursue it. In fact, smaller goals are often better because they're achievable on a daily basis. They provide frequent, reliable signals to your brain that you are moving forward. Whether it's making your bed, going for a walk, reading a chapter, or finishing a work task, the reward isn't the outcome itself, but the sense of control and agency you build through daily progress. There's also a caution here. Modern life is full of artificial ways to spike dopamine, quickly scrolling through social media, eating hyper-palatable foods, or watching content. These activities provide a dopamine hit without requiring any effort. The result, over time, the baseline level of dopamine can drop. This leads to what's called dopamine depletion, a state where you need more and more stimulation just to feel okay, and previously enjoyable tasks no longer feel rewarding. This is why relying on passive entertainment or constant novelty to feel good can backfire. It's not sustainable, and it's not biologically balanced. To cultivate real happiness, the focus must shift from reward consumption to reward creation, and the way we create that reward is through meaningful effort. That means actively choosing to pursue goals that matter to you, tracking your progress, and learning to feel good about the process, not just the result. One powerful mindset shift is to reward yourself internally for the effort, not the outcome. When you can tell yourself, "I'm proud of showing up and putting in the work," your dopamine system adapts to reinforce that behavior. This keeps you in what's called the dopaminergic treadmill of positive pursuit, energized by progress, not dependent on constant achievement. Happiness isn't something you wait for. It's something you generate, one purposeful action at a time, and your brain is wired to reward you for that if you learn how to work with it rather than around it. Gratitude is often talked about in self-help books, podcasts, and wellness communities as a key to happiness. And while it might seem like a soft, emotional concept, neuroscience shows us that gratitude has a very real and measurable impact on the brain and body. But here's what most people miss. Not all forms of gratitude practice are equally effective. To get the true psychological and physiological benefits, you need to engage in gratitude in a specific way that deeply activates the brain's social and emotional circuits. When done correctly, it becomes a powerful tool for improving mood, strengthening relationships, and enhancing overall well-being. At its core, gratitude is a pro-social emotion, meaning it helps us connect with others. It activates neural circuits associated with empathy, bonding, and safety. These circuits are rooted in structures like the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, and the ventral vagal complex, which together influence our emotional tone, heart rate variability, and sense of interpersonal trust. The neurochemical most closely associated with gratitude is oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. Oxytocin plays a role in feelings of closeness, love, and connection, and it helps shift the nervous system from a stressed, reactive state to a calm, open, and cooperative one. So how do you actually tap into this system in a meaningful way? The common advice is to keep a gratitude journal to write down things you're thankful for each day. While this practice can be helpful, research shows it's not always deeply effective on a neurological level. That's because simply listing things you're grateful for often becomes mechanical. You might write, "I'm grateful for my health," or "I'm thankful for my family." But without emotional engagement, the brain doesn't fully activate the circuits required to experience the full effect. Instead, a more powerful method involves recalling a specific moment when someone else was grateful to you. Why? Because this memory forces you to re-experience an event where your actions had a meaningful, positive impact on someone else. It activates a sense of moral worth, connection, and social reciprocity. When you reflect on a time when someone expressed gratitude to you, perhaps through a heartfelt message, an act of kindness, or a look of appreciation, your brain replays that social, emotional interaction. This produces a deeper release of oxytocin, more robust activation of prosocial brain circuits, and often a stronger sense of purpose. Practicing this kind of gratitude doesn't take long. Just 1 to 2 minutes per day of reflecting on a specific moment of received gratitude, vividly recalling what was said, how it made you feel, and why it mattered is enough to create a physiological shift. Your heart rate may slow, your breathing may deepen, your brain shifts out of a reactive, survival mode and into a more connected, centered state. Over time, this not only boosts your baseline mood, but also enhances your ability to handle stress, empathize with others, and feel more connected to your environment. Another benefit is that this form of gratitude helps build self-worth from a place of contribution rather than comparison. When you reflect on being thanked or appreciated, you're reminded that your actions matter, that you have the power to positively influence others. This is a far more sustainable source of happiness than chasing status, approval, or material gain. It reinforces a core belief that you are valuable just by being who you are and by showing up for others. In short, gratitude isn't about forcing yourself to feel good. It's about rewiring your brain to recognize and remember that you matter, that connection is possible, and that happiness often comes not from what you have, but from how you impact others. So if you want to cultivate happiness every day, start by remembering a time someone was grateful to you, and let your brain and body absorb the emotional truth of that moment. The effects are not just emotional, they're neurochemical, and they're deeply human. Humans are wired for connection. Our brains and nervous systems have evolved to thrive in social environments where we feel seen, heard, and understood. In fact, meaningful social interaction isn't just a nice-to-have. For emotional well-being, it's a biological necessity for happiness. Neuroscience has revealed that the quality of our social relationships directly influences our mood, stress levels, immune system function, and even how long we live. The science is clear. Consistent, meaningful human connection is one of the most reliable predictors of daily happiness. When we interact with others in a safe and authentic way, whether through conversation, shared experiences, or even brief moments of eye contact, specific neural circuits are activated in the brain that help regulate our emotional state. One of the key systems involved is the ventral vagal complex, part of the parasympathetic nervous system. This system is responsible for what's known as the social engagement system, and it plays a critical role in helping us feel calm, connected, and grounded when we are with people we trust. The ventral vagal pathway influences everything from heart rate variability to facial expressiveness to vocal tone. When this system is active, we are more emotionally resilient, less reactive to stress, and more capable of experiencing joy and empathy. In contrast, when we feel isolated or disconnected, the brain interprets this as a threat. This can activate the sympathetic nervous system, triggering a state of alertness or even chronic stress. Over time, loneliness and social disconnection don't just affect mood, they can actually weaken the immune system and increase the risk of depression, anxiety, and cardiovascular issues. Fortunately, it doesn't take much to activate the social engagement system. Research shows that even 5 to 10 minutes of genuine connection with another person, a friend, family member, co-worker, or even a stranger, can produce measurable shifts in the nervous system that support happiness and emotional balance. The key is that the interaction needs to feel safe, real, and reciprocal. It's not about making small talk or being the most outgoing person in the room. It's about presence, truly being there, listening, and allowing yourself to be heard in return. Simple actions can be remarkably effective. Making eye contact during a conversation, expressing appreciation, or sharing a personal story are all ways to deepen connection. Even a brief phone call or voice message, when heartfelt, can help trigger oxytocin in release and reinforce the neural circuits that regulate mood. Over time, these moments accumulate, creating a foundation of emotional safety and resilience that supports overall well-being. There's also strong evidence that helping others, even in small ways, enhances our own happiness. Acts of kindness, generosity, and support activate reward pathways in the brain and reinforce our sense of purpose and belonging. Social connection is not just about receiving support, it's also about giving it. When we show up for others, we reinforce our own value and feel more deeply rooted in the social fabric of life. In today's world, it's easy to feel isolated even when we're surrounded by people or constantly connected through technology. Digital interactions can be helpful, but they don't always engage the same neural systems as real-time, face-to-face communication. Whenever possible, prioritize in-person connection or at least real-time voice or video communication. Your nervous system knows the difference and it responds accordingly. Happiness is not something we build in isolation. It's something we co-create with others through daily acts of attention, presence, and care. So if you're looking for a reliable way to feel happier every day, make it a habit to connect meaningfully with just one person, not through distraction, but through genuine human presence. Your brain is wired for it, your body needs it, and your happiness depends on it. Movement is one of the most reliable and accessible ways to shift your brain and body into a state that supports happiness. While most people associate physical activity with fitness or weight loss, neuroscience shows that movement has far deeper and more immediate effects on mental health, mood regulation, and cognitive performance. In fact, daily movement, especially rhythmic, low-intensity exercise like walking, jogging, or cycling, can have a profound impact on your brain's chemistry and wiring. If you're looking to feel better on a daily basis, moving your body might be the simplest, most powerful tool you have. When you engage in physical activity, your brain responds almost immediately. One of the first things that happens is the release of endorphins, which are often described as the brain's natural painkillers. These chemicals bind to opioid receptors in the brain and produce a sense of calm, pleasure, and even euphoria. This is part of what's often referred to as the runner's high, but you don't have to run long distances to get the effect. Even just 10-20 minutes of continuous, rhythmic movement can trigger the endorphin response, helping reduce feelings of anxiety and lifting your mood. But endorphins are only part of the story. Movement also increases levels of dopamine, the neurotransmitter that plays a key role in motivation, reward, and energy. When you move your body, especially in ways that require consistent effort and focus, your brain interprets that as progress, and it rewards you with a boost in dopamine. This is crucial for maintaining a sense of purpose and momentum in your daily life. Another important player in this process is a molecule called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF is like a growth fertilizer for the brain. It supports the development of new neurons, strengthens existing connections, and enhances learning and memory. Physical activity, particularly aerobic movement, dramatically increases BDNF levels. This means that consistent movement doesn't just improve your mood in the short term. It actually helps reshape your brain to be more resilient, adaptive, and cognitively sharp over time. From a nervous system perspective, movement helps balance the autonomic nervous system, which governs your stress response. When you're stressed, your body enters a sympathetic state, heart rate increases, muscles tighten, breathing becomes shallow. Movement helps shift you back into a parasympathetic state, especially when it involves rhythmic patterns like walking, swimming, or cycling. This rhythm calms the brain, regulates your breathing, and activates the vagus nerve, which plays a central role in calming the body and restoring emotional balance. There's also a psychological dimension to movement that can't be ignored. When you move your body deliberately, especially in nature or in open space, it shifts your focus outward. You begin to break the cycle of internal rumination, the repetitive, anxious thinking that often accompanies low mood. The movement becomes a form of active meditation. You're not trying to quiet your mind, you're allowing your body to guide your brain into a calmer, more focused state. Importantly, the benefits of movement are cumulative. You don't need to do an intense workout to get the neurological rewards. In fact, shorter, more frequent bouts of movement throughout the day may be even more effective for regulating mood than a single long session. Walking for 10 minutes after a meal, stretching in the morning, taking the stairs, or doing a short yoga session before bed. All of these actions help send signals to your brain that you are alive, engaged, and adapting. And finally, movement reinforces agency, the sense that you can influence your internal state by changing your behavior. That's a powerful psychological message. It means that happiness isn't something you have to wait for. It's something you can move toward, literally. Your body is designed to move, and your brain is designed to respond positively when you do. So if you want to feel happier every day, don't just think or talk about it, move. Walk, stretch, dance, run, breathe. Let your body lead your brain into the state it's meant to be in, energized, balanced, and fully alive. Sleep is often treated as a passive state, a time when the brain simply shuts off so the body can rest. But in reality, sleep is one of the most active and essential biological processes for mental and emotional health. From a neuroscience perspective, sleep is the foundation for happiness, cognitive clarity, emotional regulation, and even motivation. Without consistent, high-quality sleep, no amount of meditation, gratitude, or exercise will reliably lead to lasting well-being. Sleep isn't a luxury, it's a biological necessity, and when you learn how to protect and optimize it, your capacity to experience daily happiness increases dramatically. One of the key functions of sleep is to regulate your neurotransmitter systems, particularly those involving dopamine and serotonin, which are closely tied to mood and motivation. When you get deep, restorative sleep, especially in the early part of the night, your brain recalibrates these systems. It resets your emotional baseline, reduces stress-related chemical buildup like cortisol, and allows for healthy dopamine signaling the next day. This means that the amount and quality of sleep you get directly impacts how energized, optimistic, and emotionally resilient you feel. But it's not just about how long you sleep, it's also about when. Your brain and body are governed by circadian rhythms, internal 24-hour clocks that regulate everything from body temperature to hormone release to alertness. These rhythms are highly sensitive to light exposure, temperature changes, food intake, and importantly, sleep timing. If you sleep and wake at inconsistent hours, especially shifting by more than an hour or two, it creates what researchers call circadian misalignment. This state of misalignment disrupts your mood, regulating systems and contributes to low energy, irritability, and even symptoms of depression. To support optimal mood and daily happiness, it's essential to go to bed and wake up at roughly the same time every day, even on weekends. This consistency allows the body to anticipate when to release key hormones like melatonin, which helps you fall asleep, and cortisol, which helps you wake up. A well-aligned circadian rhythm ensures that your sleep is more efficient, meaning you spend more time in the restorative stages of deep and REM sleep, and that you wake up feeling refreshed rather than groggy. Another critical piece is sleep depth, particularly the amount of slow wave sleep and REM sleep you get each night. These stages of sleep are when the brain clears metabolic waste, consolidates memories, and recalibrates emotional circuits. Without enough time in these stages, emotional reactivity increases, cognitive flexibility decreases, and you become more prone to stress, anxiety, and negative thought loops. In contrast, when you consistently get deep, uninterrupted sleep, your brain becomes more efficient at managing emotional input, making it easier to stay calm, focused, and content throughout the day. To support this kind of sleep, several behavioral tools have been shown to be highly effective. One is avoiding bright artificial light, especially blue light from screens, about 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Exposure to bright light at night suppresses melatonin and shifts your circadian rhythm later, making it harder to fall asleep and reducing the quality of the sleep you do get. Using dim, warm lighting in the evening and limiting screen time can help maintain a healthy sleep-wake cycle. Also important is temperature regulation. The body needs to cool slightly in order to fall asleep. Taking a hot shower or bath 1-2 hours before bed may seem counterintuitive, but it actually helps trigger a drop in core body temperature once you exit the warm environment. This drop in temperature promotes sleep onset and deeper rest. Likewise, keeping your bedroom cool around 60-67 degrees F or 15-19 degrees C can enhance sleep quality. Finally, consider your pre-sleep routine. Just like warming up before a workout, your brain benefits from a wind-down process. This might include reading a physical book, doing some light stretching, journaling, or practicing deep breathing exercises. These activities signal to your nervous system that it's time to shift out of alertness and into recovery mode. Ultimately, sleep is the foundation on which all other happiness-generating behaviors rest. When you sleep well, you feel more motivated to move, connect with others, reflect with gratitude, and pursue your goals. Prioritize your sleep, not just as a health practice, but as a daily investment in your emotional well-being. Because a well-rested brain is a happy brain.